And I think there's a whole lot of power in someone that responds to something rather than reacts to something.
And that is literally what changed our communication. Is like when you stop reacting to each other and you have the maturity to say like, dang, okay, I'm definitely feeling some kind of way. You know what I mean?
I
like
might be on 10 right now.
Yeah, but it's not, like a feedback loop when you said something and now you're reacting, then I'm reacting to your reaction, now you're reacting to my reaction, versus being like, okay, I need to take a second to respond. Are you saying this? Because it sounds to me like you're saying you don't want me around.
Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Mo Mowry Podcast. I'm Tavior Mowry.
I'm Sandy Mowry.
Thank you so much for pulling up. We just released the first video like 2 days ago. The responses have been great. We're so thankful for anyone and everyone that's watched. So please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Today we wanted to talk about communication, right? A lot of people may not know our relationship started out long distance, and we were long distance for a long time, like 2.5 years.
Yep.
I guess that's not like crazy long, but it is
Felt
long for sure. But yeah, I think we just wanted to talk about like that experience and like the things that we learned during that time, and the tools that I guess were learned and developed during that time that we still use today.
Totally. Were you ever open to like a long distance relationship before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that wasn't like I have a lot of friends who are like, I can never do long distance.
Yeah, I had been in long distance relationships before.
Yeah, same. So that wasn't like a thing.
No.
As far as a threat to like if we can make it work or not.
Facts, it wasn't like an off the table thing. And you were touring a lot.
Right. It was gonna be kind of long distance either way.
Right.
Because I'm trying to think of the year 2018. I had been touring for maybe 2 years at that point, a year and a half, 2 years.
2018.
So I was like on the road all the time, which is how we even originally got to meet up in person. We originally met on Instagram, and then we're in touch for maybe a year or something like that. But very just like music buddies, if you will. And then I had a studio, like a week planned in the studio out in LA. And that's where he was living at the time, and that's where we actually got to meet in person. So that's kind of how all of this started. And then we met on a Wednesday, I want to say, if I'm remembering correctly. Yep. And then I left to go back home on a Saturday. And the rest of the time it was long distance. Not that we never saw each other, but the relationship started pretty much in that January of 2018, and like we launched into literally days of being around each other. And then I was living in Nashville and he was living in LA. So communication was pretty much all we had from the very beginning. And in a lot of ways, it helped us, I think, now, because there was no physical, there was physical attraction, but there was no physical, tangible way for us to be physically connected. And, couldn't get distracted in like the vibes, if you will. There's a different kind of communication that you have with somebody when you're like texting or on the phone or even FaceTime than you do when you actually get to sit in silence in a room and experience. Because silence isn't really a thing you get to experience together unless you're together. And because of that, we had to learn to fill the space, but not with empty words. So it allowed like a very natural but tough at times. Progression into learning how to communicate.
What was tough?
Not having history. I think like we come from very different worlds culturally. Like I'm from the South, I'm in Nashville and Bible Belt, and my parents are pastors, and I grew up, I was homeschooled. I traveled for most of my life. Like I was a background dancer for a number of years when I was a kid, and did that for years, and then started my band that I'm in now when I was 16, and then I got signed when I was 19. So my pace was always like on the move, going, but also I was only rubbing shoulders with the people I was working with ever since I was a really small child. So my view of the world was pretty small compared to his, who, growing up in LA, it was like he saw everything. He was around very big things, very big culture. We would like have little petty fights around like him being like, Black people don't say that. Things like that. But it was just like culturally almost night and day.
Yeah.
So that hindered what we perceived as normal. You know what I mean? What?
I'm just thinking about the one explicitly where I was talking about Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, Dragon Ball Z is like that anime. And
I just don't know what this conversation is.
Like, nowadays, a lot of Black people watch a whole lot of different kind of animes, but like growing up, Dragon Ball Z was for sure one that Black was from.
Yeah.
But I was just laughing because I
didn't believe you. I was like, what?
It's like, nah, I can't.
I never assumed, again, like Black people are we can do whatever we want. But like culturally, that is, in my perspective, that was not something that was like publicized.
Oh, yeah.
Like it wasn't like Dragon Ball Z toy Black kid. You know what I mean? Like, and that would have been my experience with it because I didn't have friends at school. I was homeschooled.
Right.
It was like people at school were telling me.
Yeah. But also, mom and dad for sure wouldn't be letting you watch Dragon Ball Z.
No, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So my narrative was not like that is for Black people.
Right.
Well,
it's not like Dragon Ball Z isn't for Black people, but like, I don't know, Black people is just attracted to Dragon Ball Z for some reason.
Great.
Yeah.
It's awesome because we're great.
Fact.
And it's a cool thing and it makes sense. But it's definitely not something that at the time I was like, what? I didn't.
Nah, I feel you.
Dang, I lost my train of thought.
Me too.
Oh, we were talking about culturally differences and the reason communication was kind of tough.
Oh, yeah.
Because of all of those things we used to revel.
Facts. And it's like, with the cultural difference, there's also a communication barrier almost, where it's like, something may mean one thing to me but another to you. Mm-hmm. Or even like in the cultural differences, like a mutually experienced experience that like somebody from LA or like my city that I grew up in or like college town or whatever, that's like an almost universal experience may not like connect as much, you know what I'm saying? So I think that was definitely something that we walked through. But the nuts and bolts of like the communication, you touched on it, like not having the opportunity to be physically present with one another, but instead like the conflict resolution was only remedied through words and communicating with each other, which I think benefited us heavily. In
hindsight, we had no idea what we were doing.
No way. I still feel like
barely
we don't know
made
what
it
we're doing.
Oh, I feel like we have a little bit. I do.
Like I still think like I for sure don't have it all figured out. Like if the things that I know is like what you could feel in like a teaspoon, the things that I don't know is like the mass of the ocean. Mm-hmm.
And that means you don't know what you're doing to you?
Nah, not necessarily that I don't know what I'm doing, but like I can't boldly profess that like everything that's about to come my way, like I got a thing for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh dang, like this hit me different today. Like, and I'm trying my best to like respond with whatever I have on my belt at the time, like tool wise. But like this may be something that like is a critical piece to me adding another tool to my belt. But like, let me see how I fare through these waves. You know what I mean?
I think it's just a bit of a personality difference.
Like you thinking that you like are like locked in?
I think I'm pretty confident. If I'm just pretty confident, like, and I'm not saying you're not confident. I'm just saying that I look at things and I go, oh, I think I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So in the when I say we used to not know what we were doing at all, I don't feel that way anymore. I don't still feel like I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to how to communicate with Tavior Mowry.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, in the context of our marriage, which is what we're talking about, I feel like there are some things I do know now that I didn't know how to do before.
That's fair.
And so in that, by definition in this sector, I do feel confident in what I'm doing when it comes to like how to communicate with you.
That's fair.
Yeah. But what were you saying about that? We were talking
about just the benefit of like relying on the communication when it came time for us to be like physically around each other on a consistent level. When I moved out here, I moved out to Nashville in January 2020 before like the world got kind of really crazy. But we just had built such a crazy communication muscle over that span of time that like the physical component just kind of fit in like smoothly with everything else. Not in that way. Not in that way. I was celibate 2.5 years before I met Zandy. And then the whole entire time.
Yeah, I was a virgin when we got married.
Yeah, we dated. So not in that way. But I'm saying like, you know how sometimes like people use like just the physicality of relationship to mend an emotional thing that's not settled. Yeah. Like we didn't ever do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was opportunity in other ways, but there was no opportunity to do it with sex.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I think we should probably unpack a little bit of what the communication style is. Okay. But again, like my thing is not, this is how you communicate to everybody. This is just how I've learned to communicate with you. You know what I mean? And I do think there is like almost like the Venn diagram where there's like men, women. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
are we talking like pink and blue?
We can, yeah.
Okay.
But it's like some of the things are going to be applicable to the general, and some are very specific to this Mowry marriage, you know.
Facts.
So it's just kind of like take what you want.
Yeah.
But the pink and blue thing was huge. So my parents, who have worked with, my dad's a counselor, or both of them are counselors, and so that's a lot of where my communication came from growing up. My mom, she always had a phrase of like, communication is vital. So like, I would grow up having like family meetings. If there was like on Fridays, I think it was. I don't remember. Maybe that wasn't a specific day. I know Thursday night was date night, mom and dad. Like whether they were home or not, we knew like at nighttime, after dinner, they were gonna go into their room or they would go out for dinner, and we weren't allowed to like communicate with them because that was their time to connect. Fridays was family night, so we would have like game night or whatever. Somewhere also in that rhythm was the family meetings, or were the family meetings, but I don't know exactly if they had a day. I'm not remembering. But anyway, it was a time we'd all sit down, and with respect, we could say pretty much anything of how we felt to our parents and be like, when I got a spanking for this, you know what I mean? I felt sad. And they would listen and hear us out and be like, I get that, and this is why this happened. Like, and we would just like talk about it. So my pace of communication was that. I thought you talked about everything with your family, and then that was that. But so when we got older, and Tavior and I were dating at this time, my parents were like, hey, like there's this course called Love and Respect, right?
Sounds right.
And we're gonna, like all our kids, we want to take it. I think it was like every Wednesday or something like that for 6 weeks.
That was like a cool minute. Was that during COVID?
Yeah, because if you were here, yeah.
Yeah.
And we weren't married yet.
Yeah, no, it had to have been.
Yeah. So we would like do it, and it was essentially this guy teaching. I can't remember his name. Good course. A little dated, but it's still a good course.
It has some retro vibes.
Yeah. Just teaching about the difference between men and women, and how men who don't feel respected don't show love naturally. Now, this is not in every case. And then women who don't feel loved naturally don't show respect. And so that's the kind of crazy wheel you can get on. And then there's the other side of men who feel respected more naturally show love, and women who feel loved more naturally show respect. So he was trying to get anybody who was listening to him speak on the good wheel, like on the wheel of where you're both kind of filling each other's cups. Obviously, God does that in our identity, but we can do that in like the practicality, how to love one another.
Yeah.
And so we learned the phrase of like pink and blue and like the differences in between how we were wired as men and as women, and how we get to better communicate to a man as a woman and then to a woman as a man. But that came with learning some of these things that just naturally don't make sense to me. Like, and for him, just naturally don't make sense to him.
But what's crazy is like the way that it was put out in such that like elementary basic way. And of course, like the pink and blue, like we don't have pink and blue ears, but it's just like for the sake of like explaining like a man's gonna represent blue, a woman will represent pink. But like when you see things through blue eyes and you hear things through blue ears, like that joint sounds way different than if you were to hear the same thing through pink ears or see things through pink eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we had to learn to translate.
Yeah.
It's almost like feeling like we literally naturally speak very different languages, and we are like, how do I become bilingual? You know, like I have to figure out how to communicate with him because we literally keep missing each other, and or feeling like we're each other's enemies because we're coming from the same place using different languages.
Right.
So,
and it's not like the heart posture was out of sync.
No.
It was just a language.
I think a good example is our first and probably biggest fight. First biggest fight.
Are we talking about the
California one?
that.
So I was with the band The New Respects. We were in California for a month out in January of 2019. And so we were dating for like a year, a little less than a year at the time. And we were, I don't necessarily remember what was happening, but this is a classic pink and blue case. So I'm on the phone with him. I remember he was maybe at work, I think.
No, I was driving.
You were driving.
I was driving to work.
Okay, driving to work, yeah. And there's a lot going on emotionally, like that week. Specifically, I think my godmother had just passed, right?
That sounds right.
And I was in California trying to figure out how to get back to Nashville. And I don't remember why I was feeling some kind of like sad or something, but maybe that is the thing that I'm remembering right now. So I'm on the phone with Tavior and I'm like feeling misunderstood, which is I'm pretty chill, I would say. But when I'm misunderstood, I get very defensive. So for whatever reason, of which I'm not remembering, something happened where maybe I felt misunderstood. So I called him and I'm like, hey, like, sometimes I feel like you are listening to me to correct like a situation for me, and I'm not trying to like ask necessarily for your help. I just want you to listen and like hear how I'm feeling. And this is probably like, let's pretend this couldn't have been the first time I had talked about this, because your patience is way longer than that. So let's say this is the third time I'm calling you, complaining about maybe the same thing and how it's making me feel.
It's the feelings talk.
Yeah, and Tavier's kind of like, okay, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And then, so by the third time I'm saying that, I'm like, I'm not necessarily asking you to tell me what I should do. I really just want you to listen to me. Do you want to say your response, or should I?
I forgot. Like, legit. I just know why I did what I did.
So he's like, so I'm saying this. I'm like, hey, I just want you to listen to me. And he's obviously getting tight. He's like, hey. And I'm like, why are you responding like that?
Yeah, I remember now.
And he said, oh, no, it's fine. If you want to feel that way, I'll just let you feel that way.
I'm sorry.
And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. He's like, no, and I don't want to misrepresent you. So I don't remember.
That's really, I was like, well, if you want to feel that way, I'll let you feel that way.
Yeah, and I was like, you're still not listening to me is how I felt. Like, I still feel misunderstood, because it's not about wanting to feel this way. I just want you to hear me and, like, actually listen to me. So it gets to a point where he starts talking and explaining his side of which I don't remember. But I wasn't having it at that point. So I think I've cut you off.
Oh, no, you're like clear, not cutting me off, but like talking over me. And I think I was like, stop, like, don't do that, like, stop.
That's how you're going to say you said it?
I wasn't saying, how did I say it?
No, yeah.
What words was I saying, though?
I don't remember. Like, at that point, I was so hot. I don't remember.
I was essentially being
and this is 5 years ago now or something like that, so I don't remember.
I was essentially getting upset that I was being spoken over.
Again, now let's pause. I am feeling unloved because he's not listening to me. I don't feel like I'm being understood. I don't feel like I'm being heard. And he is feeling disrespected.
Super disrespected.
So we talked about the wheel already. When men who don't feel respected don't naturally show love. Women who don't feel love don't naturally show respect. So I remember being like, no, I'm not going to stop talking because...
Click. If I had the razor, I would have slapped the phone closed, but I didn't. I just had the little touchscreen. But yeah, I hung up on her, and that wasn't a wise move.
I didn't even retaliate.
It was, yeah, but there was still like a rippling effect. But like, I was like, I refuse to be disrespected like this. Like, I'm just gonna hang up the phone.
And then he took it a step further. I don't remember. Again, all of this is foggy. I literally flew to the funeral the next day. This guy. And had to sing at this funeral. And I do remember calling you, and I was like, this is dumb. Like, you know what I mean? We should figure it out. And we got through it. But the thing that stung the most is he finished, when we reconciled, we talked it through. I think I talked to my mom. I don't know if at the time you were talking to people about relationship stuff. But I was talking to the community, like, how do I work this out, kind of a thing. We got to the other side. I flew back to California. We saw each other. We figured it out. But he kept being like, and if this ever happens again, I will do it again. and I was like, what? But I'll like apologize. I'll be like, I shouldn't have talked over you. He's like, and that's fine. And that was just the wisest decision for me. Like, I definitely would do that again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, in what world do I feel safe, to ever mess up?
No, it's not like that. It was just more so like, I was like, yeah, I don't want to experience that again. So right. I will hang up.
Again, disrespect.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, for me, what we learned is how we could have avoided that kind of confrontation was speaking the language of respect. So for me, being like, I don't want to cut you off. Like, I do want to honor you in this conversation. And I don't feel seen at all, because you're saying, fine, I'll let you feel however way you want to feel. And it doesn't seem like you're actually listening to my heart. It feels like you're irritated with my request. That is the language I would use here in 2024. Back then it was, oh no, I'm definitely going to talk over you. You know what I mean? And I think maybe his language would have been,
I feel like if I would have heard you say that, I would have shut up. Like, internally. Because, there's a difference between being, quiet and silent.
Yeah.
Silent is just, I'm not saying nothing. Quiet is, I'm not saying anything inside my mind. I would have been like, oh, whoa, wait, hold up. What does she want? What does she need? What is she trying to say right now? Because, clearly, I'm missing the mark. So, I need to really focus.
So we had to learn how to honor the position the person holds and not just try to get my point across. Because Tavior, when he's the perfect man to me and when he's the most annoying man to me, is still the man that God has said he is. And he's still the head of my household, and he's still, a king. And that not in a my black king, you know what I mean, way. But because of, the position in which he holds to God and to me. And I had to learn, how does he hear stuff? And how can I communicate in a way that honors the position and the person and the honest truth of our conversation, And over the last 5 years, since that fight to now, that is a tool that I'm confident in. When I'm talking about, I do feel like I know what I'm doing. I know how to slow down enough to say things in a way where he can hear it. And it is more important to me. I was talking to Karen about this the other day, but I was like, it has to be more important to communicate clearly than it is to say something however you want to say it. The goal of clear communication has to be more valuable to me than the goal of freedom to say however I want to say what I want to say. Because that is like, one is steeped in connection and the other one is steeped in like an individualistic freedom.
Like, let me get this off.
Yeah, like it's about me and it's about how I want to talk to you.
Right.
Not about what I want you to hear, you know? And I don't want you to hear, I don't care what you feel, I'm going to talk over you.
Right.
You know? But what I want you to hear is, I feel hurt and I feel sad. But in the heat of a moment, it's so hard to slow yourself down and to remember which is actually more valuable and not which is just more attractive in the moment.
Yeah. I think the difficult thing when it comes to like that cycle of like not feeling respected equals no love equals no respect is like experiencing offense but still choosing to like for my example is like if I feel disrespected to continue to show love like that is like very hard because it's like it goes against that wiring and I guess it's like I don't know what to call that exactly like that wiring or why it's like that way but that I think that's like just a very very difficult thing for me at least. I can't speak for all men but like it rings true for me where it's just like dang like if I feel that it's hard to stay present in that place and be like I'm still going to show love despite being disrespected.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And another point is like level 2 of this was like, so level 1 was the first fight, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I was being disrespectful and that made you show like I don't want to say be unloving but you know what I mean with the hang up. Level 2 is when I'm not being disrespectful but it does feel that way to you. You know what I'm saying? And so then, or when you're not being unloving, but it does feel that way to me.
Right.
And so now the responsibility is like, why does this feel like he's being unloving? And just because we're wired that way doesn't mean we get a pass to respond any way that we want to.
Yeah, facts.
Just like in the Freedom in Christ book, it says like our response is our responsibility. Like there is no world, there is no situation in which my response to anything becomes somebody else's fault, you know? And so I think in marriage, we probably learned a little bit more how to do a self-diagnosis of like, okay, what's happening? You know, like why I know this man loves me, but this feels completely unloving that he left his clothes on the floor. You know what I mean? Like, is he being unloving or did he just forget because he was headed out to work fast? You know what I mean? It's rarely ever the latter. You know? I'm just giving a pretty general example, you know? Or the other day, yeah, I literally, so we have a little rhythm, you know what I mean? Like if I cook, then he cleans, you know, and if he cooks, then I clean, and it's worked that way for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, Tavior is a very clean person. Like I don't deal with I hear a lot of like horror stories when it comes to men. I don't deal with that. What I do deal with is him not completing the kitchen. So a clean kitchen to me is meaning the whole kitchen has been cleaned, not the dishes have been washed only. So he doesn't really like put up the dishes.
I'll let him air dry, you know.
For 8 days.
The water.
Like apparently it takes 8 days to air dry.
That's true. It'd be like that.
But no worries. I'm like, you know what? He has a lot on his plate. He's doing a lot. That's fine. The other morning, he didn't complete the kitchen. No worries. I got up before everybody else, went to the kitchen, cleaned it all. It was very clean. He gets up, starts prepping for work, makes himself a smoothie, makes himself some coffee.
Some coffee.
No, you didn't. I don't remember this. You made coffee the day Chris came over. I'm talking about the mug. Exactly. I'm talking about the mug.
Oh, that was tea that was left in the studio.
Okay. Well,
I didn't make coffee that morning.
Essentially, dirties it wasn't even my kitchen to clean. You know what I mean? It was his turn, but I was helping him out. And then this man leaves.
I'm sorry.
And it's like, bye, have a good day. And like, so I say that to say I could take that as this is unloving. He doesn't care anything about me. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't care. Or I could say, you know what? That is just part of life. That is not an unloving thing. But it took maturity on my end to understand the way I'm wired and understand that my filter can take an innocent mistake and make it personal. And because I want to feel loved and seen and understood so much, I can easily feel unloved, unseen, and misunderstood by just simple actions, you know? And I think the same can be said of you when it comes to the respect thing. I'm like, I genuinely, unlike the first fight that we're talking about, I genuinely was not trying to disrespect you. But because I did that, you do feel disrespected. And your response to me feels unmerited. Yeah. Because I'm like, I literally was just saying, what time? I can't remember. I was pregnant at the time, but I said something with a tone. I didn't think I had a tone. And you were like, whoa, like, don't talk to me like that. Like, we don't speak to each other that way. And I'm like, what way? You know, do you remember this at all?
I don't think so.
I feel like I could have gotten a little grace since I was pregnant. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Yeah. But also, like,
how I speak to you is like such a thing. But you know, I get it.
But sometimes Lexi be like, Sandy.
No. I totally have had a tone before.
Sure,
I'm not saying I'm completely innocent. I'm saying that also a thing is, like, I talk to my family, like my siblings and stuff, in a way that not that you can't take it, but they are not as offended because of the position they hold.
Right. Yeah,
like, there are ways you could say things to your siblings that you could not say to me.
Absolutely.
And I could say things to my sibling. Again, it's about position and honoring all of that. So sometimes my tone towards you
gets lost in the sauce.
Well, it's just the way that I typically talk to the people closest to me. And then I'm like, okay, that I could see how that was too much. But I'm not trying to be like, I'm not generally a petty person. Can you agree with that?
Nah.
Yeah.
Not at all.
If I have something to say, I'm not passive aggressive at all. I'm just
trying. A little PA. Never hurt nobody.
That was literally the only way you used to speak when we first got together.
I literally thought, I guess I can speak about passive aggressiveness, especially like communication wise.
It felt like the most unloving thing to me.
And I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, forgive you.
I apologize. The environment in which I grew up in, I thought passive aggressive like talk was pretty much just saying something with like a little like
you'd be like a little spice,
little seasoning. And I thought that was just normal. Like, I literally was just like, oh no, it's just like a colorful way to speak, to say something, even though it's like slick, like indirect, but also very direct. Which I guess the passive aggressive. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna go around right at you.
Right. Like, what?
Yeah, and I had built like tremendous muscle communicating passive aggressively, so much to the point that like I would say things and Zenny would be like, that's passive aggressive, and I'd be like, what? Like, really?
I would literally repeat it back, and then he'd be like, ah.
I'd be like, you know what? When it's coming at me,
yeah, I do hear it.
That joint,
when I'm saying it,
kind of got some edge on it.
Right, 100%.
So with that being said, like, I feel it was this process of like relearning how to communicate, and also like, you know, sometimes, a lot of times, stumbling and like falling back into that place of like being passive aggressive. But I think things really began to change when I could kind of start to acknowledge I was being passive aggressive. And that's not to say that like I'm no longer passive aggressive. But it is to say that like I have an awareness that like that kind of communication is just not profitable.
No.
And it benefits no one. And to a certain degree, it's like kind of like, let's say your face is dirty, but you want to go outside and you like want to look presentable.
Mm-hmm.
So you just put lotion on your face so you're not ashy.
Mm-hmm.
But like as you continue to do that, like your face is getting jacked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I equate the face to being like the relationship, and like the cleaning of the face being like a healthy communication amongst people, and a processing, because like there's a process inside of me, there's a process inside of you, but there's also a process inside of us as far as our relationship is concerned. And it's like without that face being washed and just kind of having this like passive aggressive layer of like pseudo processing emotion, but like actually taking a stab at you, the relationship doesn't benefit from it, but slowly starts to get like harmed.
Yeah. It just corrodes it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like it's always such a wild thing. I'll be like, try you out here walking, bro. Speaking of Triumph, our son, like us establishing a communication style of our family, and how will he walk and talk in this world is like heavily influenced obviously by us, and like something that we're establishing with him is like, yo, like say what you want, like just don't have an emotion about something, but also like we don't react, we respond to things. And I
when
think
you say don't have an emotion about something, we're saying don't stay only expressing emotion without expressing a need. Not you can't feel, you know.
right.
We're saying don't just stop there at the emotion.
Exactly. Thank you, babe. And I think there's a whole lot of power in someone that responds to something rather than reacts to something.
And that is literally what changed our communication. Is like when you stop reacting to each other and you have the maturity to say like, dang, okay, I'm definitely feeling some kind of way.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
I
like
might be on 10 right now.
Yeah, and we either have this conversation in a second or, you know, but it's not, you know, like a feedback loop when you said something and now you're reacting, then I'm reacting to your reaction, now you're reacting to my reaction, versus being like, okay, I need to take a second to respond. Are you saying this? Because it sounds to me like you're saying you don't want me around.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, no, that's not what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Or you say like, do you have an attitude? Because it sounds to me like you said that with the tone. And I'm like, no, I'm literally sorry. I was just in the middle of changing Tri's diaper and then I have to leave for work. So I was just saying it quickly. And you're like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like giving each other, one, the benefit of the doubt, and then two, just being like, how do I respond to you even though my emotions reacted within me first? But it's funny kind of tracing it all the way back to when we first started dating, having no tools on how to talk to each other. Because also with the love and respect course that we were talking about earlier, they give you very generalized tools, but we have to apply them to a specific person. So I know, like, for example, sure, if I say...
Wait, hold up.
If I'm like... If Tavior says, do you want this? And I go, sure. He, like, doesn't love it. It's not his favorite.
Nah, it's not that I don't love it. I hate... This is a pet peeve. I know it may sound irrational, and I won't veer off too much. I just hate that word. I hate the word sure. I feel like it's a...
You do say it now, though.
Do I? I be around you. It's like... It just feels like a backhanded yes.
And to me, it's just like, yeah, I mean...
And I
haven't given it that much thought. Like, sure, that's fine with me.
Nah.
It's a quick yes. It's a quick yes.
I want a yes or a no, not a sure. Sure sounds like...
apathy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like... And it just sounds like you're not all the way in or all the way out. I need you 100 on either side. Sorry.
Which? So
it's just
but that's what I'm saying, specific.
It's
so that is
like-
a word that Zandy doesn't use with Tavior that often. Because Zandy is specifically loving Tavior.
And I appreciate
And
that.
sometimes using that can feel like disrespect to you. You know what I mean? I'm like, sure. You know what I mean? You're like, if I don't typically say it with that kind of attitude, but I'm just using that as an example of how some of this that I've learned to communicate is learning to communicate with another human who has thoughts and opinions that not every human in the world, or not every male in the world, has these same thoughts and opinions. You know?
And some of them don't be making sense.
Some women don't be making sense.
No, I did not say that. I said some of them don't be making sense. Like my thoughts and my opinions don't.
But they make sense to you, so I'm like, I'll rock with it.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I feel seen.
Thanks. I do my best.
You do great.
Thanks. That's probably it.
I think that is it. Yo, please like and subscribe. Once again, this is the Mo Mowry Podcast. Until next time, peace.